So, Take What You Can Carry is the first track on Forever Halloween. Probably like you already knew. But yeah, that song was one of the ones that changed kind of a lot from the demo to the actual finished album. It was originally more of kind of a piano pop rock song, and then in the studio changed to kind of whatever you would call the finished product. But it was one of the more difficult ones to get right, but when we did, turned out to be one of my favorites on the record. So take what you can carry.
Love and Drugs. It was a tough nut to crack. Brendan Benson, who produced Forever Halloween, was sort of against everything that we loved about the 90s. He loved the opposite. So, in a lot of ways, it was really neat to work with him because he opened our eyes and ears to a lot of music from the 90s that we had no idea existed. But I remember with Love and Drugs, I initially wrote the demo in sort of like a Smashing Pumpkins style, and when I explained that to him, he was kind of like, nah. So we ended up taking more of a the Cars route, and that's when Brendan sort of brought up the idea of having a synth line that runs through the chorus, and it's one of my favorite songs on the album for sure. It just has, for whatever reason, never translated live, and I think it's probably because of how we approach it when we play it live. So we still need to do some working, but definitely one of my favorite cuts on the album.
So for Run, we actually had a couple different guitars going at the same time. Recorded everything live, so it was very important that we figured out who was going to be tackling which part early on in the day. So I remember we had a long discussion every day for this record. We had like a really, really long discussion before we'd hop in to track it. And, the song starts out pretty aggressive. It's got these like, like these stabs going. That's one side. And I'd be doing that. And then Ken would come over and with a different set of stabs. So you kind of have this like alternating guitar part, or I guess dueling guitar part. And so that became kind of the theme for the track. So that kind of runs through the verses and whatnot. And, that song I think was really fun to do as a group in a live setting because it required everybody to kind of feed off of what everybody else was playing. Because a lot of parts were kind of dependent on the timing of other parts, if that makes sense. The other fun part about that song was, I think, in the bridge, it's like a switch gets flipped, and then it's a super noisy, like gritty guitar solo. It was totally improvised. I think every time we did the take, I played it completely different, and probably ruined a lot of takes by just botching it. So we'd have to go back. So there's a lot of pressure when you're doing a song live, which I know nowadays isn't super common, but it was like you would feel it approaching. You'd feel us like getting up to the bridge, and I'd be like, oh my god, I have to do something cool, or else we're gonna have to go all the way back and track the whole song again. So yeah, man, that one was a really fun sort of like test of skill.
White Walls is the acoustic ballad rock song on the album. We seem to always have at least one of these on the record, on all of our records. But yeah, it's a song about family and brothers. And lyrically, I think it's some of the best stuff on the record. So it's really cool. And the original bridge of the song, we were trying to rip off the Goo Goo Dolls. But then when we brought it into the studio, Brendan said we should rip off Shudder to Think. So I think it's a mixture of both those bands. And yeah, it's a cool tune, and we haven't played it in a while, so it's gonna be cool to do. So yeah. Happy was the first song we posted for the record. I remember we had a review of it, and someone compared it to the band Pavement, and that made me happy, and I felt like we achieved what we were going for on that song. But yeah, it was the first song we recorded for the album. We got to Nashville and met Brendan, and pretty much 10 minutes later we were working on that song. It was the last song we sent to him in the demos, and then he was like, what do you guys want to work on? And we're like, I don't know. And he was like, how about that one that you sent me yesterday? And we're like, okay, and didn't really think about it, and the demo to the actual finished song didn't change all that much, but yeah, it's still one that's really fun to play, and I'm excited to play it at the show.
Birthday in Los Angeles is about just that, a birthday that I had in Los Angeles. I've explained what the song is about before, but I think it was important for us to sort of, and we've done this a couple times since, at least one, for sure, on You Are Okay, but we felt like it was important to have sort of a closure to the first half of the record, in the sense of like having a moment where we take all the production away and we sort of just showcase what the song is in its truest form. Minimal instrumentation. And I remember Brendan had an idea of making it more like sort of something you would hear while eating outdoors, and like sort of a European cafe vibe, more like Parisian or something like that. What was really neat is that we got to experiment with a ton of different instruments, and a lot of keyboard-based instruments. So it was definitely, for me, it's probably one of those songs that will not play very much. I mean, since we put the record out, we probably played it. I actually don't know if we've ever played it live, so maybe we need to give it a fair shot. Definitely still like the song. I'm now 7 years older than that birthday in Los Angeles.
The song Blood Red was, I think, the song that most like embodied the environment. The studio specifically, it takes me back to being on the floor, the dusty floor of that studio, and hearing the creaks and the moans that the house made. And really, like, I think that that song gained so much out of being in that studio in particular, and really sounds like how the record feels, and it's definitely a vibe for sure. And one of the more interesting kind of song structure things that we've worked on, I know Brendan and us were kind of far apart in what we liked when we first started working together, and we kind of went over tons of bands that we were checking out, and he kind of had mentioned this thing that gave us an idea to kind of run on what ended up being the end of the song, kind of on this single note path where the melody kind of transposes over just the one note, which is actually surprisingly strange to write. So that's one of my favorite songs, and definitely interesting things that we chose to do.
So Kennedy Curse is one of those tracks. It's kind of got this duality between really ghostly sort of guitars and like ethereal sounding parts, and then a really heavy, loud chorus. And I think the way that we wanted to approach it was by kind of sectioning off these two things. So the song starts with a riff that Ken's playing, and it's very kind of straight, and then I come in over top of that with a lighter sort of like ghosty melody. And that kind of carries through all the verses of the song. And the reason we did that was when you get to the chorus, it opens pretty big, and everything's just kind of like loud, pats on open hi-hats. It's just like really kind of in your face. And because we were doing it live, just like when we did Run, a lot of the songs on this record actually, it required everybody to be very, very on it. It's full of really, really intricate kind of complex voicings and picking patterns, and So the music side of it was a bit daunting. I think I remember we did a ton of takes of this song, and then at the end of the day, I think we went back and listened to them, and one of the earlier takes ended up being the one that we used. And I think the funniest part about doing a song in that sort of live fashion is that you kind of strive for perfection, and then at the end of the day, or the end of the project, you realize that the stuff that you were really trying to fix and really hone in on didn't matter as much as the feel that you got from those early takes where you're kind of like nervously feeling your way through it. I think the whole record in itself, I think that's what it brought out. But Kennedy Curse is a great example of that. It's not perfect, but it's got enough of that sort of nervous energy in it that makes it very, very unique, to me at least.
Sad songs. This is one of the rare songs where the lyrics are kind of just exactly a telling of an event that happened. So John was in a cab in Newcastle in the UK and was talking to a taxi driver and talking about what kind of music he listened to, and he started saying that he was only into sad songs because he was sad. When he was a young man, the girl that he was in love with was forced to marry somebody else through a planned marriage through her parents, and he could never see her again or talk to her again, and it had been like 25 years since this had happened, and he still thinks about her every day, and so this song was kind of a telling of the story that the taxi driver told John that day, and he put it into a song. So, but it's a cool song. I enjoy playing it live. We haven't played it in a while, but it's definitely a different groove than what we generally have in one of our songs. I think Oasis was a big influence on this one in particular. And, yeah, go and listen to sad songs.
The song Fucked Up Kids really just goes. That one was one of pure energy. I remember, I think Jared recorded that opening track like in the room with the amp on, blaring, and I love the tones on that record, or on that song rather. Brendan's guitars were just unreal. He had this awesome Epiphone 335, and he had a Guild Aristocrat that I played a lot, and that thing was so amazing. It was like on the verge of falling apart every second, but it was really such an amazing sound, and that one contributed so much to how good that song feels. And then the ending of that song was something that we stole completely from a different song and dropped it in there, and it fit so much better after that driving song to slow down and really have the thought be heard. What a cool song. And I remember we were even debating on that ending part of putting it in there or not, and I remember just being so into that. And yeah, it really helps round out the record.
These 4 words. This one is a song that when we gathered all the demos and all the songs were written for Forever Halloween, and we were in the studio, we had not heard this, but John had written it months before. We were going through all the songs. I think we were already done tracking like 8 of 10 songs or 8 of 11 songs for the record, and John plays us this demo on his phone, or maybe he even hopped on the piano and began to play the song, and he was like, oh, I have a demo of it, and he plays the demo, and he didn't even think it was something that we would consider putting on the album, and we were like, this has to be on the record. So then we recorded it the next day. So if he hadn't just hopped behind the piano and started playing it, this would not ever be a Maine song. So I always thought that was a cool story, and I think some of the greatest songs that we've done kind of happen in that way, where you're not thinking about it too much, and you end up putting on a record. But definitely one of the saddest songs that we've ever had. It's just piano and a vocal, and all recorded at the same time. Two takes. We picked the best one, and that was it.
The title track of the record, Forever Halloween. This song sort of, anybody who's followed us and who's listened to our records knows that we like to be over the top sometimes, very theatrical, not only in our music, but in sort of the way we present ourselves and the way we present albums. And I think that this one, for as on the nose as it is, with following the album title, and I'm really proud of this song. We definitely don't give it enough love live, but we, again, with the help of Brendan, we dove a little deeper into David Bowie's catalog and definitely took pages out of his book with the outro. And I think, again, the Rhodes just plays a huge role on this whole record, and that's a really important instrument in this for that record for us. And I think that you can definitely hear, maybe not the most of us playing live together, but this is one of the most, I feel like, that feels like us in a room together playing. So it's a really important song for the record, and a really, in our opinion, the way that it sort of abruptly stops at the end, is very unique for us, because the tape, when we recorded the tape, it actually ran out, and that's kind of the way that the last kind of tape spun. So definitely an important song on the record, and yeah, we hope you enjoy the whole thing.